Hey everyone, it's Bennett Forrest, your fantasy football commissioner, back after a unintended 3 week absence. First of all, I do apologize. I made a commitment this year to do a recap every week, and then I got busy with the fall season and just got out of whack here. No excuse, and obviously my team not being so good um, makes my motivation go down a little bit, but that's really not the main reason. I just got busy and just didn't prioritize it, and it's my fault. So I know that the throngs of viewers out there were eagerly waiting my recaps every week, so I do apologize for those people who were disappointed. But let's move on. Let's move forward and talk about Week 13, where all the playoff participants have been set. This is the first time in our league that we've ever had no playoff spots up for grab in week 14. We do have a little bit of positioning to play for, but basically the four teams that needed to win, that controlled their own destiny, all four teams won and clinched playoff spots, except for Ray Finkel's Kicking Academy, who pretty much already had the spot locked up, the division. So let's get right to it. Let's start with Ray Finkel, who is going for a unprecedented 14-0 season this week. He'll be facing the Slim Aussies, who are just looking to play spoiler in week 14. But this is probably the lowest scoring week he's had all year. This may be the one time where he actually got lucky. Every other week, Ray Finkel's been blowing people out, but this week not so much. Did get 144 points, which is nothing to sneeze at, and does get the win. Obviously, steady points all around, nothing spectacular. Roethlisberger basically was getting blown out all game, but he did come back at the end with some garbage touchdowns, especially one which cut the lead to a field goal, but it was literally the last play of the game, and it was literally for fantasy point purposes. I will give special mention to Rashad Jennings, who has been hurt off and on this year, but did have a really good game. I know that I had Odell Beckham and Larry Donnell on the Giants, and for my team, but Rashad Jennings got all the touchdowns and not my guys. So good kudos there for Rashad Jennings. Surprising to have Brandon Marshall on the bench. He's actually had a really good year and not a lot of touchdowns, but pretty steady all year. Been hurt a couple weeks. So Ray Finkel gets a lot of credit for pulling all the right strings and pushing all the right buttons. Mark Ingram's actually had a really good year. Look at this, 3 straight games, and after doing nothing the first half of the year. And kudos to Ray Finkel for playing him at the right time. And then now that Jennings is back, pulling him out at the right time. So 144 points for Ray Finkel. Chioma's team, Chioms, finishes off with a disappointing 122 points. Cam Newton, obviously, Ryan Tannehill being your your two top quarterbacks is not going to do much for you. When those are the best you have from the quarterback position, you're not going to win too many games. Le'Veon Bell has been amazing this year, but too many single-digit points we see here, to get the win. So they fall out of the playoffs. They're 5-7-1, and Ray Finkel goes to 13-0, and easily the best team in the league this year so far. Other games we had. The Travelers doing what they needed to do to clinch a playoff spot. They beat the disappointing Slim Aussies 167-109. The aforementioned Odell Beckham and Larry Donnell not doing. Actually, Beckham had a really good day as I wait for the screen to load up. Decent day, 16 points. Larry Donnell had a couple catches, but he had a big fumble, which obviously lost a couple points and led to the Jaguars getting a touchdown, helping them beat the Giants. So Matt Ryan and Cutler doing decent those two games. You can see 23 and 17 points. Andre Ellington's been hurt all year. He's had a tough time. He's had a couple good games. The biggest thing that hurt the Slim Aussies was child beater Adrian Peterson getting suspended for the whole year. And I have no sympathy for Adrian Peterson, but from a fantasy perspective, it didn't do much good. The Travelers, in spite of Colin Kaepernick doing nothing on Thanksgiving Day, does get a good game from Flacco, and Trey Mason was amazing. Every time I looked up, he was scoring for the Rams, and just steady the rest of the way. But really, Trey Mason was the stud this week. Um, and just to show how the Slim Ozzy's year's been going, I've started Andre Johnson every week this year, and before the other day, he had 0 100-yard games and only 1 touchdown. And of course, I bench him, and he's got 7 catches and a touchdown. So that's sort of a microcosm of the Slim Ozzies. But again, the Travelers get 167 points, led by Trey Mason, and they're going into the playoffs. And they actually have a chance, I believe, a small chance to win the division. Speaking of the Mish division, let's talk about the Somerset Stallions, who are probably the biggest tough luck loser of the year, although they are 7-6. They've had, I think, the second or third most points in the league. And really, Phillip Rivers and Breeze, you can't beat that from quarterbacks. I have to say, Jordy Nelson's been amazing. Only 13 points Sunday, but Jordy Nelson's been just amazing. And Golden Tate is probably the unsung hero of the Stallions. He was pretty mediocre last year, but if you look at his stats, I mean, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 500-yard games. Only a couple touchdowns, but he's had tons of catches. Look at this, 8 catches, 11, 7, 10. So Golden Tate's been really good for the Stallions. He's got to be happy as a second and third receiver there. So 166 points total. They beat the hapless B-More BPE, who only got 138 points. Stafford and Calvin Johnson picking it up lately, but Calvin Johnson probably just missed too much time this year. But you'd think, Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Jackson, Anquan Boldin, Calvin Johnson, on paper looks like a great team. Just Calvin Johnson just too little for the first 2/3 of the year, although picking it up lately. And the Stallions get 166 points, so they definitely deserve to win the game. And nothing special from the bench for either team, so just basically all the right people were started, and the Stallions get the win. Let's talk about the final participant, and this is probably the dark horse sleeper to win the championship, which is Third and Oolong, former champion, really coming on of late. They get a league-high 217 points. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers has been nasty. I think he's got, 3 picks all year? Just amazing. I have to say DeAndre Hopkins has been great, not just this game, but all season, especially, like I mentioned, Calvin Johnson having a terrible year. DeAndre Hopkins is really the #1 guy in Houston, as you can see. Consistently 5-6 catches a game, several 100-yard games, several touchdowns, and then his biggest game was this week with 48 points. So DeAndre Hopkins is definitely the man over Andre Johnson. Of course, Antonio Brown's been amazing. Torrey Smith's a little bit hit or miss, and Gronkowski's been great. So again, Third and Oolong is probably the sleeper pick to win the championship. The Calvinators have had actually a really good year, a little bit of bad luck at 5-7. Andrew Luck's been incredible all year. Nice pickup for Sanchez. And Arian Foster, other than missing a couple weeks, has been great as well. So Calvinators a little bit of tough luck this year. We'll look at the total points in a second. They are also, along with Chiomes 5-7-1, and they are out of the playoffs. And Third and Oolong, very strong at 9-4. And then I guess we only had one game. We had Cartel and Graceland. Was probably the only game without playoff implications. The Cartel with a win would have had a small chance to be in contention for a playoff spot, but they lose 130-123. Graceland, tough year, but they do get their 4th win. Look at this. Brian Hoyer and Zach Mettenberger. That ain't going to get it done, Sarah. So, and LaShawn McCoy's had a really disappointing year. He's picked it up lately, but, first half of the year was just nothing. He's only had 3 touchdowns, maybe a couple receiving touchdowns. And the Cartels had a tough year, too, with Romo being down lately. Pretty good team overall, just couldn't quite get it done week in, week out. So they lose, and they're out of the playoffs as well. So let's take a look at the standings, which, again, all the playoff teams are set because none of the top 4 teams have more than 1 game lead. So easy math there to figure out. I believe the Stallions have more points than the Travelers. So Um, the Travelers want to win to avoid, first of all, to win the division. Second of all, to avoid the Ray Finkel's kicking academy in the first game. So a lot to play for this week. But the first spot and the first wild card are both locked up with Kicking Academy and third and Oolong. So the only thing left so let's look at the playoff projections if the season ended today. As you can see, Somerset Stallions would have to play the favorite going into the playoffs, Kicking Academy, if it ended today. Third and Oolong, which is, again, no sleeper here either, would play the Travelers. However, let's take a look at this at Week 14 coming up. And like I said, Ray Finkel's Kicking Academy looking for the undefeated regular season, playing the disappointing Slim Aussies in one game. The Travelers, if you can see the line, are projected to win over the Calvinators, and the Stallions are projected to lose. So if the projections hold up, the Travelers will win the division, and they will avoid the Kicking Academy in round one. Obviously, Travelers' loss and a Stallions win will lock it up for the Stallions. So Stallions need to win and get some help to get the division. Travelers control their own destiny. And then we have these three games on the left that have no playoff implications. Excuse me. So that's the recap for Week 13. Again, apologize for taking so long to get back to it. Good luck to everybody. I'm actually, in spite of not being in the playoffs, I'm going to hopefully watch some football and with the fantasy ticker and the Red Zone channel on Sunday one last time before the playoffs. And everyone else, of course, is looking for playoff positioning going into the playoffs. So that's it for now. Again, a couple of stragglers that have not sent in their dues to the Tilt application. Please do. You know who you are. And good luck on the final week of the regular season of fantasy this year, and I'll talk to you next week.